try to persuade them, before you try to influence them, call them into action, ask them to make a choice, ask them for their support. I'm not certain exactly what your goal is, but informative strategies are very important. I do so today with things that will keep you on the edge of your seat, I promise. I've put in, I've strategically researched and tried to find things that would drive home my point and help you to consider what it is that you might include in your speech as you work together towards this end goal. Jeremy informed me that YouTube, the YouTube links he's been using this morning are problematic and don't.
It might be the wireless network too.
Yeah,
it could be the issue.
I tried it here right before class, so we'll see. I've got some good ones, so I hope that it works today. Using informative strategies, this is something that you might do to complement, like I said, your persuasive goal in the advocacy speech. Think about how it is that you might inform, you might act as a teacher, if you will, your course peers, and I challenge you to that. Bring us into information that we don't already know. Bring us, go beyond common knowledge, go beyond a simple Wikipedia Google search. Find out, delve in deep into your topics, and find out what you have to say that's interesting, that's intriguing, that we don't know. You act as a teacher and you provide this lesson. When you're at that juncture, when you're providing information, you're not actually calling on your audience to make the choice. So think about those times in which you're taking in information and you feel that you're receiving very true, very accurate information. That's another thing I felt disillusioned about with the presidential debate, but I won't get off on that tangent story. Think about how it is that you might share ideas with your audience, take that knowledge and help them understand and set the agenda for them, if you will. Now this comes right out of your textbook, and so I'm going to forward through this. Some of you are going to go, no, wait, but this is right out of your textbook. Your informative goals should provide that new perspective. Like I said, my challenge to you is that you take some time and you think about a topic in a new way, you research something and you tell us something you don't know. Tell us something that we would be surprised to know. Evaluate your source credibility, scrutinize your source credibility, make sure that you are a credible source by way of what the information you're sharing. Qualify your sources in terms of tell us where it is that you found this information and how it is that you've researched your topic. Maybe take into account something that was previously ignored. When you set the agenda for an audience, you are telling them, you are planting the seed, if you will. You are telling them the topics that are important about a general idea. Where in the world do we see agenda setting happening every day around us, in positive and negative ways? I'm a consumer of it. Woke up this morning, turned on my radio. Had my radio on all the way into town. My husband runs the morning news, so I can C-SPAN and Fox. Where is that? Where do we see agenda setting happening all of the time? The media? Yeah, in our media. Right? And if you think about our media sources, I want you to become aware of something. I'm going to set the agenda for you right now. Who owns that information that we receive? Do you know how many major media conglomerates there are in 2012? I'm not for certain. Are there 6?
Somewhere around 6 or 5, yeah.
I think it was 5 or 6. When I was in my last year of grad school, which was 2003, we were aghast at the idea of there being only 7 major media conglomerates, 7 sources for which hold the gatekeepers, if you will, the information that we listen to. And so that it's interesting to think about what topics are brought forth and who decides what we hear. But very much like our media, you in the classrooms will set forth the topics, bring forth the ideas that your audience is thinking about your particular campaign. So create a positive or negative feeling. But this agenda setting is education through awareness. Remember that line, education through awareness. All right? And it's something that you should strategize and think about and not be cavalier, but rather choose your topics very carefully to share with your audience. I'm going to go through the informative strategies that are right out of your book, you guys, but what I'll do different is I'll provide some additional insights, and I have some pretty interesting videos to go along with this as well. One of the most basic strategies of informative speech is that of definition. How is it that you make the unfamiliar familiar, or you define unfamiliar terms? Do I have anyone going into professional school here? You're going into med school, maybe someone going on to law school, PT, OT school. Anyone? Okay, quite a few of you, right? And think about this, the special subset of jargon that you will know and you will have to become very familiar with in order to walk the walk and talk the talk of a doctor. Are you going into med school? OT. Or going into OT school. And you're probably planning on doing some internships and doing some things to prepare you right now to start to immerse yourself into that field. As you read the journal articles and start to really understand the discipline, you know that there's some pretty industry-specific subsets of vocabulary that you will know, right? This is especially useful when you're standing in front of an audience. Think about how they are taking in the words that you have. Challenge them, but educate them. Define technical terms. Define industry-specific terms. Social networking terms. Never assume that someone understands what you're saying because you're addressing an audience of a wide and varied demographic. Another example that I had included was jargon of racial profiling. Some of the hate speech that we've seen in our society. Try to define that and understand something like that if you're presenting on that sort of topic. Jargon that surrounds the affirmative action and the legalities of that kind of policy. I've embedded kind of an interesting clip here. This is a magnified view of jargon. It's kind of ridiculous. This is Rockwell Automation.
Here at Rockwell Automation's world headquarters, research has been proceeding to develop a line of automation products that establishes new standards for quality, technological leadership, and operating excellence. With customer success as our primary focus, work has been proceeding on the crudely conceived idea of an instrument that would not only provide inverse reactive current for use in unilateral phase detractors, but would also be capable of automatically synchronizing cardinal gram meters. Such an instrument comprised of Dodge gears and bearings, Reliance electric motors, Allen Bradley controls, and all monitored by Rockwell software is Rockwell Automation's retrocabulator. Now basically, the only new principle involved is that instead of power being generated by the relative motion of conductors and fluxes, it's produced by the modial interaction of magnetoreluctance and capacitive reactance. The original machine had a base plate of prefabulated annulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a panometric fan. The lineup consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes, so fitted to the ambifacient lunar wane shaft that side funneling was effectively prevented. The main winding was of the normal Lotus Oak deltoid type placed in panendermic semi-boloid slots of the stator. Every 7th conductor being connected by a non-reversible Tremie pipe to the differential girdle spring on the up end of the gram meters. Moreover, whenever fluorescent score motion is required, it may also be employed in conjunction with a drawn reciprocation dingle arm to reduce sinusoidal deplanaration. The retrocabulator has now reached a high level of development and is being successfully used in the operation of local tremulous. It's available soon wherever Rockwell Automation products are sold.
My favorite part is the non-reversible Tremie pipe and the dingle work. I mean, that's a magnified example of the use of jargon, industry-specific jargon. My husband might understand something like that. But I would need some pretty plain speak definitions to get the gist. And I catch on pretty quickly, I think. But it is, like I said, a magnified example of just how foreign you can sound to an audience if you don't define some common term.
It reminds me of what they do with a lot of television shows like CSI. They will have forensic experts on set to give them that jargon when they're writing the scripts.
Oh, really? So that they use the right vocabulary?
Yeah, so they're using the right vocabulary.
Which has worked because it has intrigued people into the profession, but it also has skewed perception, but that's a different
Yeah.
conversation. So use of jargon, it's important to define use of jargon. Additional strategies that we see effective are reporting style of informative speech and also providing complete description. Reporting style, or maybe oral journalism, if you will, is the telling of the facts, the retelling of the story. It answers the question, what happened? And think about when we hear a good report, or we listen to a journalistic report that is satisfactory, it usually starts and follows some sort of sequential order, usually chronological. And it's best for a situation when you need to explain a complex event by telling each of its components. Description is also important. Description brings forth and provides, if it's done well, vivid imagery. Your word structure should inspire the right type of vivid image that your audience holds in each of their heads. You should strategically plan your words. I like to say that, and I think I said that in here, your words don't just happen to you. Your words don't just happen to you. You choose your words. And speakers, effective public speakers, choose their words very carefully. Obama and Romney were choosing their words very carefully. It was almost to the detriment of Romney the other night. He got hung up on one particular word. Do you know what that word was? They were arguing over one word. Middle class. They always argue about middle class as well. It was terror, and it had to do with the attacks in Benghazi. And so think about how we strategically use words. I included some examples of when I've seen students provide ample and thorough descriptions. I saw a speech on travel to Costa Rica. That was a student trip that was memorable because they told the story in a way that I could almost imagine them in Costa Rica working with the students, building houses, and doing what they were doing on their trip. The San Francisco earthquake in 1906 and the construction of the Oahe Dam are all ideas of stories that I've heard, blending that reporting and providing a thorough description. Here's a case of reporting and description that's taken from Tuesday night. This is a 3-minute clip the case in which Romney and Obama do get caught up in the description of what happened in Benghazi.
Recently, students from 31 countries took part in a science test.
Yeah, that changed.
Top academic performers surprised
It's sporadic. Every so many hits, they do it.
17th place. Let's raise the bar and elevate our academic standing. Let's do what's best for our students by investing in our teachers. Let's solve this.
Closing in, I want to still get a lot of people in. I want to ask you something, Mr. President, and have the governor just quickly. Your Secretary of State, as I'm sure you know, has said that she takes full responsibility for the attack on the diplomatic mission in Benghazi. Does the buck stop with your Secretary of State as far as what went on here?
Secretary Clinton has done an extraordinary job. But she works for me. I'm the president, and I'm always responsible. And that's why nobody's more interested in finding out exactly what happened than I did. The day after the attack, Governor, I stood in the Rose Garden, and I told the American people and the world that we were going to find out exactly what happened, that this was an act of terror. And I also said that we're going to hunt down those who committed this crime. And then a few days later, I was there greeting the casket coming into Andrews Air Force Base and grieving with the family. And the suggestion that anybody in my team, whether the Secretary of State, our UN ambassador, anybody on my team would play politics or mislead when we've lost 4 of our own, Governor, is offensive. That's not what we do. That's not what I do as president. That's not what I do as commander-in-chief.
Governor, if you want to
Yeah,
reply.
I think it's interesting, the president just said something which is that on the day after the attack, he went to the Rose Garden and said that this was an act of terror. You said in the Rose Garden, the day after the attack, it was an act of terror. It was not a spontaneous demonstration. Is that what you're saying?
Please proceed, Governor.
Want to make sure we get that for the record, because it took the president 14 days before he called the attack in Benghazi an act of terror.
Get the transcript.
He did in fact, sir. So let me call it an act of
Can you
terror.
say that a little louder, Janet?
He did call it an act of terror. It did as well take 2 weeks or so for the whole idea of there being a riot out there about this tape to come out. You're correct about that.
The administration indicated that this was a reaction to a video and was a spontaneous reaction.
It
It took them a long time to say this was a terrorist act by a terrorist group, and to suggest. Am I incorrect in that regard? On Sunday, your secretary, excuse me, the ambassador to the United Nations, one of the Sunday television shows, and spoke about how this was a spontaneous
I'm
reaction.
happy to have a longer conversation about foreign
Absolutely,
policy.
but I want to move you on, and
Okay,
also
I'm
people
happy to do
can
that
go to
too.
the transcripts.
I just want to make sure that
That was the entire debate in a nutshell. Those 3 minutes encapsulated the exact style that each candidate portrayed, and in that way, I think they failed. But the point I had in including that particular piece is the description and the reporting that they used. That Obama was being asked to report what happened as a result of that event, that terrorist attack, if you will, and also the words that they have chosen that create mental pictures for us, the word imagery that is evoked as a result of their word choice. And so if you think about the words, how many of you have been to the Capitol, have been to DC and been in the Rose Garden, have been in the Rose Garden, but have been to the Capitol, and can imagine what it must be like, and picturing Obama standing in the Rose Garden contemplating this act and what the administration had done in terms of security, evokes a much different picture than when you think of, when you think of the attack on the embassy in Benghazi. And this picture is one that I took off of CNN as a pictorial representation of the attack on the embassy in Benghazi. And it's much different than one that is evoked when I think of the president in the Rose Garden. This is President Obama in the Rose Garden. And then I also thought, well, I'm just going to see what I get when I search for Benghazi again. Here's a picture of the pristine cityscape of Benghazi. And so description in a speech is important. It's important because it influences the perceptions held by your audience. And each of those candidates should know that, and they do. And at points they were successful in that, and then many times they failed. Obama failed in being almost too aggressive with his response, and Romney, I think, failed by faltering, by appearing that he didn't quite know exactly perhaps the history of, or the events that led up to that, to the attack. So those are 2 examples that I have of reporting and describing. Additional strategies that you might use include explaining or demonstrating. Explaining is that when you bring us into deeper understanding of something, if something is complex or you problematize an issue, you have to explain the events behind that. The examples I've seen of that successful in class are explanations of the Indian Reorganization Act, Soviet Union policies throughout the ages. And one of the most interesting explanations I had in class was how the Nielsen reporting works in our country. Speeches of demonstrations surround us. If I say Bobby Flay, Rachel Ray, Emerald, those are all cooking shows that you might be familiar with, right? And think of how effective those are. Those are in telling us how to go through a process, how to do something. Home improvement shows have caught on. Self-improvement shows have caught on by demonstrating how it is that we can do something. And you can demonstrate something for your own audience if there's something that they can partake in and show them that they can do it. How to cook a meal, how to wallpaper a room, how to prepare a simple tax return are all examples of speeches of demonstration. I grew up on Bob Ross with Public TV. Anyone know him? He explains to us how the simplicity of
trees.
watercolor, of oil painting, I guess is the exact clip here. And he's quite entertaining, and you'll learn something here. You'll learn that there are 500 branches on it, and it's free. But he does so in a way that
Let's take the
it's
paintbrush,
easy
we'll
to
start with
like.
that. And pull it through the paint. Pull it, wiggle it even, that helps. That helps bring the paint down toward the end of the bristles and gives you a nice sharp edge. A lot of paint on the fan brush. Look at that. See, it's a tremendous amount of paint. Okay, let's go up here. Now, there's several different ways of making evergreens. So I'll just show you some. Start by just tapping. Now we use just the corner of the brush. And see? Just back and forth, using the same corner of the brush. Back and forth, back and forth. As you work down the tree, push a little harder. Look at there. And you can just keep going on and on and on and on. Make as many branches on this tree as you want. Now, one thing that will help you, everybody knows there's 500 branches on an evergreen tree. But look right up close here. See, there's not that many showing, because a lot of those 500 project towards you, a lot of them are on the other side. And so don't put too many in there. Don't overkill. All right. Tell you what, I'll do one more real quick here, because this is probably one of the most used ways of doing evergreens. Back and forth, back and forth. Leave some limbs out there. You need places for the little birds to sit. Gotta have a place to put their foots. Okay, that shows you very quickly a couple of nice ways of making evergreens.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. So, never underestimate the power of demonstration in a speech. And if you can do that, he did that in 45 seconds. So if you can walk an audience through some process, that can be very effective in building and understanding and providing information for an audience. In the report, the embedded report that I have coming up next, you'll see a demonstration of the process of data mining. And I think that's an intriguing explanation of that process. One of the last strategies that I have seen and that is included in Zarefsky's textbook that you have for the class is that an informative speaking strategy of comparison. And that can be very powerful, especially if you then go on to provide why one thing is better than the other. Okay, my little boy helped me with my notes for this, okay? He has a Wii at home, but he very much wants an Xbox 720. Is that right? 360? Have I got the number on? Okay, that's why. Okay, well, he's a victim of consumeristic America and shamelessly watches a lot of cartoons with commercials. But anyhow, so maybe you would give a speech in which you compare two products or two ideas or two things. But that's the last informative strategy that you might consider in order to educate your audience. The final piece that I have for you today is one that I want to bring forth in order to bring to light every single one of the informative strategies that we have seen today, and also bring to light the idea and the notion of agenda setting. How many education majors do I have in the classroom? Raise your hand, be proud. Teachers, good. Keep your hands up if you have a Facebook page, you educators. Keep your hands up if you have monitored very closely what you have on that Facebook page. Yeah. And a lot is at stake, right? In terms of internet privacy, is anything private anymore? No, I don't think so either. And in this segment here, we see a piece of this gal right here. Well, her name is not. I've got my little note sheet, my little crib sheet. She is an educator who was asked to resign because of this very photo on her Facebook page. And this piece reports on that story, and then also sets the agenda on asking the question of what type of internet privacy rights do we have or should we have as educators, as American citizens. And so I think this is a good piece. And we can ask ways in which this broadcast uses those strategies. In what ways is this report different? And how might you take ideas from this model and use this in your own speeches? So.
The pictures were exactly what you'd expect on a European summer vacation. Cafes in Italy and Spain, the Guinness Brewery in Ireland. So 24-year-old Ashley Payne, a public high school English teacher in Georgia, was not prepared for what happened when her principal asked to see her in August 2009.
he just asked me, do you have a Facebook page? And, you know, I was still confused as to why I was being asked this, but yes. And he said, do you have any pictures of yourself up there with alcohol?
In fact, the picture that concerned the principal, showing Payne holding a glass of wine and a mug of beer, was on her Facebook page. There was also a reference to a local trivia contest with a profanity in its title. She was told a parent of one of her students called to complain. And then, Payne says, she was given a choice: resign or be suspended.
He told me that I needed to make a decision before I left that room, or he was going to have to go on and suspend me.
She resigned. Attorney Richard Storrs is fighting to get Payne's job back.
It would be like I went to a restaurant and I saw my daughter's teacher sitting there with her husband having a glass of some kind of liquid. You know, is that frowned upon by the school board? Is that illegal? Is that improper? Of course not. It's the same situation in this case.
But here's the really troubling part. Payne had used the privacy settings on Facebook. She thought that only her closest friends could see her vacation photos or her use of the B word.
I wouldn't use it in the classroom, no, but Facebook is not the classroom, and it's not open to the students of my classroom. They are not supposed to see it. I have privacy in place so that they don't see it.
Privacy? What Ashley Payne or any one of us who uses the internet has to realize is this. Today our private lives are no longer so private.
When we talk about the right to privacy, what we're really talking about is the right to control information we consider to be private.
Frederick Lane is an attorney and the author of American Privacy.
Considering what happened to Ashley Payne, does that mean that even when you think you have some amount of privacy on a page,
You absolutely may not. All it takes is one person making a copy of what you've posted, and it's out in the wild, and you no longer have that control.
And we're not losing that control, we're giving it away. Every time we buy with credit cards, use cell phones which signal our location, or post pictures on social networks like Facebook. Just sending an email may make public private information.
That's what is a constant tension in our society. We trade information that our parents and our grandparents wouldn't have considered private for fun, for convenience, that kind of thing.
we are our own worst enemy?
I don't think there's any question about that at all. I think that we're giving it up. We're putting it out into the world.
The tension between technology and privacy is nothing new. In the late 19th century, there was an outcry over a seemingly harmless invention, the first Kodak camera, and the birth of snapshot photography.
For the first time, people were sneaking around taking photos of other people without their permission.
It sparked this, an 1890 Harvard Law Review article in which the future Supreme Court Justice, Louis Brandeis, and attorney Samuel Warren warned against an ongoing loss of privacy. Today, one of the fastest growing businesses on the internet is something called data mining. Companies collecting our private information, packaging it, using it, selling it.
I think this is the Social Security number.
Yes, it is.
Michael Furnick, a Harvard Law School grad who runs a company called Reputation.com, came up with information I thought was private. I was wrong. He also revealed what he called my online reputation, based mainly on where I happen to live.
Our query is pretty confident that you're a Catholic, and also we're pretty confident that you donate a lot to charitable causes.
But that may not be correct.
That may not be correct.
And then there's something that could cause a real headache down the road.
There's an Aaron F. Moriarty, who grew up just a few miles from where you did, who has been convicted of serving alcohol to minors. And it would be very easy for a machine to confuse you and that person and to think that you are a convicted criminal.
I mean, the reality is that most people like to look past what you want.
Furnick's company helps people track down and correct misinformation, but most of us will never even know it's there.
The dossier on each of us that is easily aggregated digitally is now probably, let's say, call it 10 pages. 4 years ago, it was 2 pages. In 4 or 5 years, it's going to be 100 pages. Why? Because the amount of data that's being collected about each of us every day proliferates.
But David J. Moore, who runs 24/7 Real Media, an internet advertising firm, seems unfazed. He points out that marketing information about potential customers is really nothing new.
Magazine publishers has been selling a list of subscribers they have to advertisers who want to send the mailing to them.
And keep in mind, the more specific, detailed the information, the better companies can target their advertisements to customers who really want it.
Let's ask the 500 million people that are on Facebook, how concerned are they about their privacy? Or the 100 million that are on MySpace. Most of them really don't care.
Don't tell that to high school teacher Ashley Payne.
Yes, I put it on the internet, so you can make the argument that because it's on the internet, it's public, regardless of whether or not I made it private. But it sort of feels like the same thing as if I had those pictures in a shoebox in my house and someone came in and took them and showed one of those pictures to my principal.
What's worse, after she resigned her job at Appalachian High School, Payne says she learned the original complaint came in an anonymous email, not in a phone call from an angry parent.
No parent has ever claimed it. There's never been any other complaints against me at this school from teachers, students, or parents.
Officials at the Barrow County Schools who declined to speak to Sunday Morning have so far refused to rehire Payne. In court documents, they say teachers were warned about unacceptable online activities. Payne's page, they say, promoted alcohol use and contained profanity. She is now in graduate school and is suing the district. She says she wants to be sure that the internet won't just record how Ashley Payne lost her job, but that she fought back.
Well, what do you think? Let's first start with the easy questions, which are the elements of this particular report. It told Ashley Payne's story in chronological order. It provided the facts, and then it started to set the agenda for the issue in our society of internet privacy, right? Is it something that you think about quite often? Maybe I've set the agenda. Maybe you're going to think about it from here on out. But this particular report describes the actions which threaten our privacy. She gave a description of providing understanding of how we put ourselves out there by credit card use and cell phone use. And then brought in the description of data mining. Had anyone ever heard of data mining in that industry? I thought that was fascinating as well. She provided a demonstration by putting herself out there, the journalist put herself out there, and walked through what her online identity looks like. So they provided definitions and explanations almost at every turn. I thought one of the most interesting pieces of that story was when the Harvard Law Review provided a definition, a contemporary definition of privacy after the advent of the camera in 1890. I thought that was interesting. And then further, I think it calls on us to define what privacy is in this contemporary age. And also, deductively, it provides comparison of, how is it that we call on privacy rights for all Americans, and especially our educators. And I want to know, okay, so go back to the issue. How do you feel about that? Do you think our educators need to be very, very careful and monitor? Do you think that was fair to Ashley Payne because she had a connection to a really shady site on her Facebook page in terms of if you're going to evaluate her as an educator? And then also vacation pictures. What about the some of the in her contract, some of the words that exist about her professional conduct? People use those words all the time. People are getting fired all the time for things like that, and I think that's interesting. Yeah, yeah. interesting, isn't it? Yeah, she's in law school. They did not offer her job back. She resigned. They didn't fire her, and so things might have been different when I read a little bit more about her case. Things might have been a little bit different if she had been fired. But she was asked to resign, and she did so. But it brought to light some social issues and political issues. Okay, so ready for the quiz, and then we're out of here, right?